Hello, my name is Michele, and you're listening to Profit is a Choice. On the podcast today is Julia Bocchese. She is an SEO and Pinterest consultant for small businesses in the creative industry. And today we're going to be talking about all things strategy for your website, for your Pinterest direction, and for your SEO. Julia offers some really simple to-do reminders to put our businesses in the best position to be found. Every day, empowered entrepreneurs are taking ownership of their company financial health and enjoying the rewards of reduced stress and more creativity. With my background as a financial software developer, owner of multiple businesses in the interior design industry, educator, and speaker, I coach women in the interior design industry to increase their profits, regain ownership of their bottom line, and to have fun again in their business. Welcome to Profit is a Choice. Hi, Julia. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Always. It's so fun. I was thinking the other day, we all need websites and we all need to have our information on the internet, but not
Mhm.
everything works for every person. When I saw some of the conversation that we were going to have with Pinterest and, SEO and that kind of thing, I've tried Pinterest 2 or 3 times. And I mean, not just me, but I hired teams to try it. I got shadow banned one time. We didn't even know why. Didn't even know what happened. And then we started realizing that, not every platform is for every business, right? We have to kind of choose the ones that really work for us. And it didn't work for me. But what's so interesting is it worked so well because, it's funny. We don't go for coaching advice and think, oh, let's go to Pinterest, it makes sense, right? But if I'm looking for something beautiful, I'm going to go to Pinterest. And then I'm going to hope that it's going to feed back to my website. So we'll get into all of that. But I'm curious to ask you, how did you get started in business and what brought you to the world of SEO and Pinterest and all those things?
Yeah, so I started my business a little over 7 years ago. The first year I was kind of just trying out everything. Like I was doing some like design work, some social media managing with Facebook and Instagram. And then I learned SEO and Pinterest on my own because I actually started with a travel blog. And so I kind of learned how to get, a lot of traffic to my blog with Pinterest and SEO. And then this was around the time when Instagram and Facebook really started changing their algorithms, and I got tired of trying to keep up with it because they change it like every 3 months, I swear.
Yeah.
Then I started focusing more on SEO and Pinterest because I was seeing a lot more results with my clients that way. They were getting, a lot more clients in the door, getting a lot more traffic, a lot more sustainable traffic with both of them. So I focused on SEO and Pinterest after the first year, dropped, Facebook and Instagram and, design work. And especially for a lot of the service-based businesses that I work with, people are going to Google to search specifically for, an interior designer near them or something like that. And then they are going to Pinterest because Pinterest is actually a search engine.
That's
So they are searching for specific, either topics or inspiration or ideas. It's not kind of just like on Instagram where you scroll, you might follow some people and, like someone who maybe lives like on the other side of the country or even in a different country, and you're never going to hire them, but you just kind of like what they have to offer. Whereas on like Google and Pinterest, people are going there to search specifically for something. And if you have what they're searching for, they're much more likely to go to your website. And then you can use that traffic to, get them to hire you and become a client or sign up for your email list or sell a product, kind of, whatever you have, wherever you want to channel them. You can use your website to do that.
Yeah, that was the whole reason that we were looking at Pinterest more as a search engine for us, right? That SEO. We were looking for it to be like a Google that it would push back. And it does work that way really well if you've got the right traffic on Pinterest. It's just like anything, we have to what it is we're putting out there, we got to put it in the right place so that the right people see it. Um, so I'm curious, when you start thinking about Pinterest, where do we start with just what do I want the Pinterest to be? Like, let's say somebody did not have a Pinterest board or they had one that had been very neglected. If they were going back to create a strategy around it, not just jumping in and throwing a bunch of pins at it, how do they start thinking before they do anything strategy? I love the strategy conversation before the act of doing.
Yeah, so it all goes actually back to your website content. So whatever blog posts, portfolio photos, things like that that you have, that's going to dictate your strategy on Pinterest. Because if you are, designing a lot of like luxury homes, but on Pinterest you're pinning like DIY, how to like paint walls kind of thing, that's not going to match what people are going to be finding when they go to your website. So you want to make sure like whatever website content you have, that is going to dictate your Pinterest strategy. So think about kind of like different categories that you have for your blog posts, whether it's like designing, patios or bedrooms or, kitchens, something like that. And then take those categories, and that's the types of boards that you can be creating on Pinterest. You can also get a lot more specific than just kitchens. And you can like, if you design a particular style of kitchen or particular colors or something like that, then you can, kind of expand the boards and get more specific with the style, the color, maybe who it's for, whether it's like for families or for apartments or, something like that. And take those categories and, use them on Pinterest, because whatever you're pinning on Pinterest is going to go back to your website. So you want to make sure everything is aligned and matches there.
You're right when you talk about going into Pinterest and clicking on an item and then it taking you to the website and it feeling like you went to the wrong place, right? The goal is we want to when they come in, we want them to feel like, oh, you're here. This is what we do, and this is what you're looking for, and here's more of what you're looking for. I love that idea. I really like it when we've been looking up how to do a couple different things. It's really good for some of the how-tos. You go to YouTube and see some of the videos, and then you can go to Pinterest. But I like it when they take you back to a blog post, and then the blog post kind of walks you all the way through. Uh, Usually a DIY or a way to do things, right? Or here's what we did. Or I know I was looking up a lot when we were trying to figure out the color of our floors. We were having all of our hardwoods refinished, and I was trying to think of how do I cut down. We have a red oak, and I don't want it to look so red and yellow. Like, how do I do this? And then there were a lot of designers that had boards out there with all the different colors on different stains of wood and how they mix and what they do. And so it was super helpful. And it was funny because even when I followed the path and went back to their websites, quite a few of the designers, I went and found them on Instagram to start following them because I enjoyed their work and enjoyed what they were doing. So maybe I'm not buying from them initially, but I am starting to close the loop and create a closer connection, if you will.
Hmm. Yeah, and on Pinterest, I mean, with any platform, it's rare that someone is going to see one of your Instagram photos and immediately go and hire you. Like you're kind of using, Pinterest and Google and every social media to kind of get these people into your ecosystem, maybe warm them up if they are interested in working with you kind of in the future, stay connected with them. So when you do bring them to your website, whether it's from Pinterest or, somewhere else, make sure like all of your blog posts have calls to action to get them to sign up for your email list, or maybe even check out your services or follow you on Instagram or something like that. So that way you can, stay connected with them, give them more information if they are interested in checking out your services. So that way they don't just go to your blog post and then just, leave once they got an answer or,
Yeah.
Something. You want to make sure you're using your content to stay connected with them and then, hopefully turn them into a lead down the line.
You know what's so interesting to me is thinking about the fact that this is about, like, I love how you said your Pinterest strategy is based on your website strategy. All right. So then that begs the question, what is the website strategy built on? Right. So that's why it's so important to have a strategic plan for your company that then the website follows along with that plan. And then the SEO for Pinterest or whatever else, wherever, Instagram, wherever you are, follows along with the website so that people don't get whiplash when they see you in one place or another. That's why we even used to talk about make sure you have the same headshots and all of these different places. So they recognize that they're actually following and seeing the same person over and over and over versus somebody who's got multiple versions of themselves out there. It can be very disconcerting when you're trying to build that trust to say, do I even want to follow you? Do I want to hear what you have to say and see your take on the world and that kind of thing? Um, so when you think about, we'll just keep talking about Pinterest for a minute. when you think about that, how much time usually goes into crafting a good Pinterest strategy and putting up pins? And I know there was a time when it was like, I don't know, 15 to 20 pins a day. Like we are sitting there almost robot pinning to try to get pins out there. What does it look like today? Like I know that it shifts and changes like all the other algorithms, but if we were just trying to just start to build a good, healthy presence, what are we talking about there?
Yeah, so it was definitely before it was, quality or quantity over quality, and now it's switched where Pinterest is really focusing on quality pins rather than, pushing out 50 pins a day or,
Yeah.
just repinning the same thing over and over and over again. So I typically recommend pinning, I mean, it's going to differ also for every business to see, kind of what works the best. So I recommend trying out like 5 to 10 pins per day, kind of see how that works. If that's too much, start with 1 or 2 pins a day and then kind of build it up as you go. If you have a lot of content on your website that you can use, you can probably, be able to do the 5 to 10 a day. If you're just starting out, you just launched your website, you only have like one blog post right now, then, kind of just start with one a day or one every other day and then build it up as you have more, blog posts that you're able to pin. So you're not just pinning the same thing over and over and over again. I also recommend, testing out different types of pins. So I'm sure you guys have tons and tons of beautiful photos that you can use. So you can just, pin the standalone photo. You can also pin graphics. So like, it can be a photo that has a text overlay, or it can be like a collage of a few different photos with some text on it. You can also try video if you're doing a lot of video for like, Instagram Reels or something like that. You can just repurpose that into video pins for Pinterest. So kind of like test out to see what performs the best. I do recommend Pinterest has their own analytics, so definitely check out your analytics in there to see what's performing well. I recommend focusing on the clicks that you're getting to your website and not just like the impressions you're getting.
Mm.
Because impressions just means
So how many people actually click and follow through to
Mhm.
go look? Yeah.
Yeah. So impressions just means that people have seen the pin. It could be like just while they're scrolling or while they're searching for something, but it doesn't mean that they've taken action on that pin. So it just means, the pin is ranking well, which is good. But it doesn't mean that people are doing anything with that pin. So definitely want to make sure you're focusing on the engagements that your pins are getting. So whether it's the saves or the, clicks to your website or comments. If you're doing a lot of video, people, can like and comment on the videos. So check to see what kind of engagement the pins are getting and then, kind of use that information to dictate the strategy going forward.
I think impressions feel so silly to me because when you think about the fact they're just saying this is how many eyes we put it in front of, but that doesn't mean that person saw it. If I just scrolled past it and I can't control what they're feeding me anyway, they're controlling the feed. That's what's so interesting. But I guess if you look at it and how it plays into the clicks, but as a standalone, like you said, I wouldn't look at it and think it was great or bad. It's just whatever they're serving up for dinner is kind of what you're going to get in that particular case. Um, all right. So if we talk about that with Pinterest, let's back up then to the website. What are some of the easy things we can do on a website to make it in a better place with SEO?
Mhm. Easiest thing is saying your location.
Is that not the truth? How many people? I go out to people's websites and designers, and I'm looking at them, and I'm like, I don't even know where you live. There's no even the contact is a form. It has no address, no location. I don't know if you're East Coast. I don't know if you're West Coast. I know nothing, and it's really frustrating. I'm like, how would I even know that you could serve me if I was your neighbor?
Yeah, exactly. So it's confusing both for, potential clients that are going to your site who maybe, found you on Instagram or something like that. But then also Google doesn't know to rank you for those locations. Or when someone in your location searches like interior designer near me, Google will use the location that you put on your website to, match where people are searching the near me keywords. So if you don't put your location anywhere, you're not going to rank well for that location. So putting your location very clearly, again, for potential clients as well as Google, like at the top of the page in multiple locations on your website as well. Don't just like put it in the footer and, think that's good. You really want to make it clear to Google and potential clients where you're located, the areas that you serve. This doesn't mean you have to list out like 100 cities or anything crazy like that. You can just say like, Southwest Florida or like the Philadelphia area or something like that if you do kind of serve a larger
Right.
region. But definitely putting your city, areas that you serve, and also say what you do. I just did an SEO audit for an interior designer who used words like interior and designer separately on the page, but never once did she say interior designer together. Google
Interesting.
doesn't know enough to connect the dots a lot of times if you're using interior, at the top of the page and then designer near the bottom of the page. You need to say like interior designer, interior decorator, whatever your like service is, you need to
Yes.
say that.
It's so interesting to me that there are things like that that are so easy, yet they're the things that we often miss. Like we're not thinking about them in the same way. We're thinking, well, of course it makes sense if you read it, but the challenge is we got to get them to the page to read it. So if the words aren't together, we never get them to the page. Yeah, I've seen a couple, and I'm just like, if you're calling me and I don't even understand what I'm looking at, I promise you, your client doesn't know what they're looking at, right? You can't. But the location is the one that gets me the most, is tell people where you are and where you're stuck. And it doesn't have to be your home address. I know there might be people here that are working from their home. You can just say, serving, like you said, Southwest Florida. You can put something that's just a state or even an area of a state that gets us closer than just nothing. Nothing out there. Okay, so telling their location and being very clear on what they do. What else are some good SEO tricks or have to haves, if you will?
Yeah, so kind of going along with the, website copy, saying who you work with or the, types of clients that you serve. A lot of times people will just say like, yeah, I do interior design. I'm like, do you do for families? Do you do for people who are retired? This is their second home. You do vacation homes specifically. Like, get specific on who you serve because again, this is going to be something that people are looking for when they visit a website, but also if someone is searching for like interior designer for, young families or something like that, and that's exactly what you do, then your website is much more likely to be ranking for that. You can also definitely use keyword research tools that will give you a lot more like data on how many people are searching for different keywords, what the competition for different keywords are, but just kind of like at the basics, say your location or areas you serve, say your interior designer, and then say like who you work with, who you serve. So that way both Google and potential clients, know that information. And then kind of with the location on the other end of the spectrum, I've seen people have like 20 different location pages where they take the exact same website copy and then just change the location. Actually, I did an audit recently for someone who had 26 different pages, which is, yeah, it's a lot.
Does Google doesn't like that, do they? That's like a cut. They
Like
just
an
almost think you're
outdated
cutting and
practice.
pasting. Yeah,
Yeah, so it's called duplicate content. So yeah, exactly. It's kind of like you're plagiarizing yourself, where you're taking
right.
all of the same information and then just changing like one word or something like that. So Google doesn't like that. Your entire site could be plagiarized, or not, sorry, not plagiarized, penalized by Google. So like this could hurt your entire site in the future.
Mm.
Or Google just might not even look at those pages. With this audit, I could see that Google hadn't indexed most of the pages, which means they saw the pages, but they decided not to rank them because they weren't relevant. So don't have a million different location pages. If you do kind of have like two or three very different regions that you serve, like I've worked with some people who they, winter in Florida, so they do projects in Florida, and then they, have their summer location in like Michigan or something like that. So those are obviously two very different locations. So you can have a page for each of them, but make sure at least 50% of the website copy on that page is different. So it doesn't look like the duplicate content that Google doesn't like. Um,
Mm. Good point.
so yeah, make sure just trying not to like, trick Google because that doesn't help you in the
It's
long.
not usually going to work out in our favor. So what I'm hearing you say then is the same things that we always talk about, knowing who you are, what you do, who you serve, how you serve them, and being very clear with that on the website. And it's more than just being clear, it's grouping words together. I always say to people, and I'm no SEO expert, but I usually say, think about putting things together in the way that the people who are looking for it would say it. Put that on the site. Like if they're looking for, designer for small family or family with kids or whatever it is, if that's what they're looking for, back to your point of doing some Google keyword research so that you could see it, then we can pull that in and we can start to say, how do I use those terms on the website? Because that's what they're actually looking for. Even if I might state it differently, how can I state it in the way that they recognize it and are wanting to come in? I don't know. It, it blows my mind that we know who we are and what we do. Like if you were to ask those people, they can give you the answers. But if somebody else looking at our website or looking at our content can't figure it out, maybe that's the good thing to do is if you write it, ask somebody who doesn't know anything about you and what you do, ask them the questions, to see how they're interpreting what it is you put out there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I have to do this for my own website, like especially SEO can kind of get like, the techie jargon. So I always, I had a friend a couple weeks ago, I made some changes to the website and she's like, this doesn't really make sense to me. So I have to like make sure I'm breaking things down and, writing in, language that people understand and are searching for. So having another set of eyes can be really helpful.
You had mentioned blogging earlier too, Julia. How often to blog, what to blog. I remember back in the day where a lot of the people, well, not a lot, but I'd say a fair amount of people who are now influencers, especially in the whole beauty and home industry, they had blogs and that was the way they influenced, right? They wrote all the blogs, they put all these pictures, and then they went to monetizing their blogs. And so we went from very blog heavy, where, I mean, I can remember subscribing and getting multiple blogs a day and just pouring through the blogs and the first kind of ideas of people really putting their thoughts out there or their pictures or their view on things. And then Instagram came and Pinterest came. And so you could start to see things maybe a bit more collected from multiple places at one time without all the words. And so then we kind of took this blog, like every day they were writing a blog or, 3, 4 times a week to swinging back over to like putting out the occasional blog. What is, first of all, who should blog? Should we all be blogging? Should everybody be blogging? And if so, what do we talk about? And how many do we need to put up to make it effective?
hmm Yeah, so I do think most benefits would benefit, or most businesses would benefit from blogging. Maybe like your local dry cleaner, they don't need to have a blog. But most like service-based businesses should be blogging. You definitely do not need to blog every day. That's, yeah, that's something that worked like 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, a lot of those blogs were like 2 sentences long with like maybe a couple of photos. So they weren't high quality. They weren't anything that kept you invested.
They were closer to what we would put on an Instagram post
Yeah.
today. Yeah.
Yeah. So blogging has definitely changed a lot. So I recommend at least one like strategic blog post per month. If you can do more than that, definitely go for it. But if you want to do other blog posts, like kind of behind the scenes of projects that you're currently working on or something like that, that's great too. But definitely at least one blog post with, kind of the goal of ranking well on Google with it, or like, using it to convert clients that you're, getting traffic from Pinterest or something like that. Because yeah, not every blog post is going to rank well on Google. So if you're doing kind of a lot of like the behind the scenes or like different types of projects that you're working on, that's helpful for kind of like showing potential clients what you're doing, but it's not going to get them to your website from Google. So in terms of like the type of content, I do recommend thinking about what your ideal client would be searching for, what would be beneficial to them. Again, I did this SEO audit recently for an interior designer, and she was doing a lot of different types of blog posts. Some were like heavy for DIYers, like how to pick a paint color for your bedroom, or 5 different blue paints that are popular this season or something like that, where people reading that blog post, they aren't going to be inclined to hire her because she's given them the information. They are searching for this one easy thing that they can definitely do themselves, or even just like hire someone off the street to paint. Like they don't need to hire an interior designer to like paint one wall.
Mhm.
So using blog posts where people are searching for things like, maybe how to hire an interior designer, different types of interior designers to look for, You can also get very specific on like maybe projects that you've done in your region. So I live in Philadelphia and we have a lot of like row homes and what's called trinities, where it's like literally one room stacked on top of another in these historic houses. So if an interior designer is going to write, on like maybe different ways that you can make these trinities seem bigger or something like that using design, that is going to reach people in this local area because that's a very, location specific topic. And then she's showing off her expertise by showing she knows how to work in these, specific type of homes. So people are much more likely to hire, based on this blog post. So kind of think about what your potential clients are searching for, how you can be helpful, making sure you're staying away from like the more DIY topics, which I'm sure are much more popular, according to like, keyword research tools and maybe Pinterest analytics and things like that. But if it's not going to serve you in the long run, then I wouldn't, recommend doing those. And then think about, location specific blog posts or location specific projects that you do. So if you live in Florida, don't do things on like winterizing your home or, things that just don't make sense at all for your location.
I think the point that you made about not doing a lot of DIY when you're trying to get the person to come in and to hire you to actually do the work is good, because that's a fine line. Sometimes it's like what you're trying to do is to show them how difficult the decision-making process is, versus how to go do it themselves, because you're wanting them to hire you to actually do it. And so, sometimes it's about thinking a little, kind of to your point, how do I maybe get the idea across that choosing a paint color for your floor is not easy. There are a lot of undertones to it. I can show you some fails and I can show you some successes, and I can talk about the process that we go through to actually do it and why it's important to have somebody who knows how to do the process. So, right, you're talking them into understanding the depth of decision making, which I think is what a lot of designers are trying to do with some of their first time clients, is help them understand. Like when I go select a sofa for you, I don't just say, I'll take that one. Like you're looking at, arm design. You're looking at what kind of feet am I putting on it? What is the color of the wood? What is the fabric? How is it going to drape on it? Like how high, how tall, how deep, how full are the cushions? Like, in other words, there are like 50 decisions that need to be made to buy a sofa. So if the client doesn't understand that there are 50 decisions that need to be made, we're not giving you all the information so you can go do it, but we're giving you enough information to understand that we know how to do it. And that's kind of the fine line when you're doing it. And I would say sometimes, it gets muddy. It really does. But you're trying to set yourself up as the expert that you are. And I'll say I've seen other blog posts like how to work with me, which are really great blog posts, because if written correctly, you could say how to work with an interior designer in the, Florida Southeast region. And then if it ranks and it pulls it up, not only are they seeing pretty pictures, but they're going, oh, so this is what I need to do to hire a designer. This is how this designer's process works. This is how I could work with them. Like you're making it easy for them to see if they fit, so that they can continue that. So that's one of the blog posts that I tell everybody. I wish you just had one that says how to work with you. Even if it doesn't rank amazing on Google, it's out there when they come and start doing that search, right? They start to see quickly, like, how do I engage? What are my next steps? What do I want to do? How can I learn more and get that to move forward with you?
Yeah. And you can also use blog posts like that to maybe send to potential clients who have inquired, like, hey, this is some helpful information that you can read, before our call so you can kind of like understand the process. And I would say definitely for those like DIY posts, it can definitely really get muddy on like showing off your expertise versus like telling someone how to do something and they go
Mhm.
off and do it. So if you're kind of like you want to write about a specific topic like that, but you don't want to, just have the DIY traffic, I would kind of change the perspective to be like, this is how I, an interior designer, chooses a sofa for a client, or like five things an interior designer will look for when choosing a sofa, or like
That's right.
10 things I consider when, like finding a floor finish
Yeah,
color
color or whatever.
stain.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Like, so kind of shifting the perspective to be like, this is how I, an expert, do it, not like, hey, here's how you can do it. Like, this is things I take into consideration.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so far we have in this overall strategy, make sure that the website tells, and I still think it's so crazy that we're having that same conversation. Like you would think by now everybody would know, and I'm not trying to shame anybody, but we 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 don't need to be the barrier for people working with us because we don't tell them who we are, what we do, how we do it, who and where we serve. It's really just the basics of that. If we can get those basics in, then we can fluff it up and make it all frilly and beautiful all around it, but let's not miss the basics of interior and designer as words that go together on the page so that Google can put them together. I mean, again, a human who had made it to your page would figure it out, but they might not ever make it to your page if Google can't understand it. That's kind of the point of the whole thing here, right? So then we have our company strategy that informs our website strategy, which informs our Pinterest and our blog writing. And then our blog writing ties back to Pinterest. So what we're really trying to do is create this big communication and feedback loop, right? That kind of runs through all of our Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, all the different socials that we're using. It's trying to keep everything kind of connected in this little ecosystem so that people are staying within your ecosystem, right? I want to touch on this just for a minute. You said something a second ago that I thought was really important. You said at the end of the blogs, make sure that you have a very clear call to action so they know where to go. I know one of the conversations that we have, even in my company, is okay, if somebody comes to your website, how do we tell them where to go? How do they know what to do outside of clicking around and looking? Where do we tell them to start? How do we say get started? How do we say go here next? This is what you need to do. I know, and even in a lot of my programs, after we've gone through, like I'll give you an example, my CFO to go program. Once we go through the CFO to go, most people, almost every, actually, I can't think of anybody who hasn't asked this, but everybody's question is, okay, where do we go from here? What happens next? How do we keep doing? Like how do we stay in touch? And so we have a pathway that we have written out that we give them, right? It's that same kind of conversation that's happening. It's just happening with the person sitting in their home and your website. And so you can't verbalize it. So make sure that we have written it into the website in a way that it either, now that you've followed me on Instagram, follow me on Pinterest. Now that you're on Pinterest, get on LinkedIn or whatever, so that we're keeping them moving um, through our ecosystem.
Yeah. And definitely making sure that, again, your calls to action are very clear and they're eye-catching. So usually buttons work good, well for that. So don't just like have a line in a paragraph like click here to learn more about my services, because that's just going to blend in with the rest of the text. It doesn't stand out. And then, yeah, it doesn't really kind of entice people to want to go over to your services page to learn more. So making sure that you have something that is very colorful, eye-catching, and then also very clear, because like if you just, I've seen sometimes websites, they have a button that just says yes. I'm like, I don't know what that means. Where am
Yes,
I
what?
going? Yeah, yes, I want to contact you. Yes, I want to learn more. Like, so be very clear. You don't have to be boring and just say like learn more if that's not kind of what your brand is. But being very clear, and don't just like have very vague, text on a button. So that way people know where they're going to go when they click on it.
It's almost like when we're clicking on a button, we're opening a door. So you want to tell them, are you going into the kitchen? Are you going into the den? Are you going in the bed? Where are you going? And what are we going to go do there? You really want a heads up. All right. So one of the last topics I want to ask you about, we've talked a lot about building a strategy and working on your website, building out blogs and Pinterest and, looping it all back and forth. And we've talked about Google a little bit and how it's reading and interpreting the data. What is the work that we can do on the Google side of things? Like if we were to look at our Google business profile or we were to look at something on the Google side, what is it that we can do over there that creates a good alignment back to the work that we're doing more in-house with our Pinterest and LinkedIn and Facebook and website and stuff? What can we do on Google?
Yeah, so I mean, you mentioned Google Business Profile. That's really helpful for location-specific businesses. So, yeah, if you do serve like your local area or specific, region or city, having Google Business Profile set up can be really helpful. And that doesn't mean just like set it up and forget about it. Making sure you're like getting reviews, replying to the reviews, adding maybe an update or two each month, adding new photos of new projects that you have, making sure your description is very clear. You have like different services listed. So making sure you're going through the process of like having that profile optimized and very clear and informative for potential clients. And then staying active with it. So that way you don't just set it up and then 2 years have gone by and you haven't touched it, because that's not going to really serve you when people are searching in your, specific region. And also, yeah, definitely connecting that to your website. You can have your website URL on it. If you have a phone number that you want people to call you, you can have that listed where, so people can easily contact you. I know that's kind of a personal preference.
Right, right.
Um, so, kind of up to you, like if you want to have like your home address listed, if you do work from home, you can just kind of have the service area listed if you don't want to have your, address public. Google is getting more, I guess, strict with, how different businesses are allowed to be on Google Business Profile. So you may need to have like a studio or like a business sign or listing outside of your address. So just be kind of aware of that. If you do only work from home, you may not be able to be verified on Google Business Profile anymore. They keep changing the rules with that.
Mm,
But that's, something worth, trying out, especially if you do have like a studio or an office or,
okay,
another location with your business, listing where you can meet people.
okay. All right, that's a whole lot. I mean, I know that I don't have a business outside of my home anymore, but I've had a Google business listing for a long time. So it may be that if I were to go back and try it, and I know they were getting really weird about the address and what address you could put in, and you used to could put in one that was near you, and then it was like narrow it down, narrow it down, narrow it down. So oh well, it's all going to keep changing. Whatever we do today, in 6 years, we're going to be doing something a little bit different. I think that's the kind of the new wave of everything, is staying on top of it, which is what you even said from the beginning, is you couldn't stay on top of everything all the time and needed to narrow it down. So let me ask you this, Julia, as we wrap up. Are there any other areas for SEO that we really need to be considerate of, um, that we've not touched on yet that maybe we need to bring to attention?
I mean, one thing that's kind of popular right now is using AI tools. I know a lot of people are using AI tools to like write their website copy, write blog posts, do different tasks. Um, so I'd say AI tools are definitely very helpful, but don't just, use what the AI tool gives you for a blog post and then, put it up on your website. Because Google is actually, they're doing a lot of updates where they're trying to rank, the highest quality content that, people find the most helpful, the best. So any content that sounds like a bot wrote it or just sounds very generic, like anyone could have written it, is not going to rank very well. So you do want to make sure that you are, if you are using AI tools to at least start a blog post or give you maybe an outline, that you are writing it, editing it, adding your personal experience. That is something Google is looking for. They are looking for, that you have experience maybe with this furniture company or, doing this type of kitchen design. You're not just like having AI write tips on how to, write, design a kitchen for you or something like that. Um, so just something to be aware of. I do use AI tools for some things, but like I said, I would never just have ChatGPT write a blog post for me, call it good, and put it on my website. Like definitely making sure you're going through editing, adding your personal touches, your brand voice, and things like that.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And I still have this. I know it's AI is like all the rage and all the thing. I know it's coming. I'm not fighting it. I know that. But I also think we have to be really careful, because everything you dump into AI, it now has, right? Not to say that it doesn't have what's already out in the public domain, But if you put your own personal internal, like, here's how we do everything into it, and then ask it questions, it now has access to every single thing you gave it. So I think, and the whole conversation around that is it's still learning and gaining and pulling in information, and it's trying to do this big information grab. So I'm still just a little bit careful about a lot of bit careful about what we put into it. Now, come up with an idea, give me 5 reasons, give me an outline. I totally cool with all of that. But all of that detail, like, I'm not putting my private documents out there to say, hey, make this better, because now they have it and they can go look it up. And so I'm just not into that. So I do think we have to be really careful of, like you said, how much we use and what we're using it for and how we're claiming it. And how, I know there's going to be a lot of conversations probably in our future on who owns what, because if it all goes into the collective, who owns the collective, it sounds very existential to say all that, but it is coming. I mean, even now, who gets to say they own what's in ChatGPT when ChatGPT pulled it from 5 other people and put it together for you? Well, aren't those 5 people going to get credit for it? So, it gets sticky. So I agree with you. We have to be real careful with that as we move forward.
And I
Well,
will say AI
yeah.
tools, from at least from what I've seen, like ChatGPT, they're the best with SEO. Like I've experimented and like said things like write a blog post using this, keyword, and they put it in the most random spots. Or I've like asked them to write a meta description and it's like, 700 characters long when you only get 160 on Google. So even if you're trying to kind of like, get better at SEO with AI, they definitely are not the smartest tools, at least for the time being.
Yeah, I'm sure they're going to improve and it's going to get better. And I'm sure our tolerances for things are going to shift. But for now, we should be super careful of that. So, Julia, I'm super thankful for our time together today talking about SEO and Pinterest and all the things.
Mhm.
So where can people find you? Where are you hanging out online?
Yeah, so I am on Instagram. You can find me at Julia Renee Consulting. My website is juliareneeconsulting.com. I have tons of blog posts and resources and things like that if you do want to kind of like dive into more, SEO or Pinterest strategies.
And you have a free offer for our listeners. Where can they
Yeah,
go to
so
get that?
you can go to juliareneeconsulting.com/SEO hyphen client hyphen freebie. You can probably also, get the link on my website. I have it pretty clear. But it's a guide on how you can use your traffic from Google to convert more clients. So that way you're not just getting traffic from Google for the sake of getting traffic. Like you're actually getting quality traffic that is going to convert into clients to help grow your business.
Awesome. We will also have that in the show notes, so anybody listening will be able to get it from there. And I thank you for your time today, and
Yeah.
look forward to talking to you again.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Thanks, Julia, for sharing on the podcast today. Grab her free offer in the show notes. Being intentional with strategy all throughout your business is imperative if you want the clients, one client touch point to lead to the next, if you want them to stay involved in that feedback loop. Ask yourself, is my strategy complete for the business and for marketing, financials, and operations? Is everything pulling in the same direction? If you don't have a complete strategy or you have no strategy at all and you want to build one, reach out. We love assisting people in doing that work. Our Designers Inner Circle and our CFO to Go program, that combination is just beautiful. And it puts you in the driver's seat to be able to have a complete strategy with everything pulling in the same direction. I'm going to invite you to choose to be profitable, because profit doesn't happen by accident. Profit is a Choice is proud to be part of the designnetwork.org, where you can discover more design media reaching creative listeners. Thanks for listening, and stay creative and business minded.